Good morning, everybody. It is great to see you again today on this beautiful Sunday. I hope you had time to get outside yesterday. If not, go outside today for sure. If you're not in Minnesota, then this is the kind of day that you are missing it because it's beautiful here today on this glorious spring. Let's pray over this time. Thank you, God, for this morning, for this chance to gather. Teach us, train us, and lead us forward. In Jesus' name, amen. First of all, it is great to see all of you. Please do continue to share your thoughts and your ideas all morning. Christine, I'm glad to hear that Dan's doing better. I encourage you guys, this is our community. If you're not able to attend in person or you're choosing to attend in this way, this is our chance to meet. So it's okay. Share your thoughts and your ideas the whole time. So I've been thinking a lot about, of course, everything going on in the world, maybe even too much for crying out loud. I don't know. But I've also been thinking about all of that in context of what's happening in our world and the activity of the church in the world. You know, this is a theme for me. I talk a lot about what are people who are intending to follow Jesus doing and saying right now, because we need to be clear about what we believe and what we believe in doing as a part of following Jesus in this world. So there's been a project going on here around the church that most of you may know about. If you don't, you're going to find out next time you show up. But we are repurposing the floors in our lobby, the hallway to door B, the hallway to the music room, and the multipurpose room, so that we can better serve our community. First of all, it's hard to haul pallets on carpet, especially when you push it and it causes it to like wrinkle up and like come apart. And secondly, it's hard to clean carpet. Actually, we drop eggs by accident all the time. So we are repurposing our floor, and as a result, of course, I've been processing all of this because this is just an amazing thing for a church to be willing to do. And I'll talk more about that later. But there's a lot of spiritual meaning behind all of this. And there's a story in the Bible that at first you might think this has nothing to do with a flooring project in church, but it does. I've been thinking about this story a lot. It is one of my favorite Bible stories because, frankly, I think it's one of the times when Jesus is super funny. I mean, he seems to give his mom a pile of sass in this story. It's the story where, as you can guess by the picture, Jesus turns the water into the wine in a wedding at Cana. Thanks, Michael. That's the story. It's only in the Gospel of John. I encourage you to read it. Oh, except I'm going to read it for you right now. Okay, here's how the story goes. Okay, I think it's funny. On the third day, there was a wedding in Cana of Galilee, and the mother of Jesus was there. Jesus and his disciples had also been invited to the wedding. Hi, Jazz. When the wine gave out, the mother of Jesus said to him, "They have no wine." And Jesus said to her, this is the part I love, "Woman, what concern is that to me and you? My hour is not yet come," which sounds to me like a pile of sass. It's kind of like, "Woman, what do you want me? I don't know." This sounds like a pile of sass. And here's why I think it's just attitude, because watch what Mary does. She just says, "His mother said to the servants." She doesn't even address Jesus and say, "What are you talking about?" She knows he's just given her grief, I guess. And he says, "Well, do whatever he tells you." In other words, he's going to tell you something because I just asked him to, no matter what sass he just gave me. I love this part. Now, standing there were 6 stone jars for the Jewish rites of purification. That's really important, ceremonial washing, okay? Each holding 20 or 30 gallons. So these are big jars. And Jesus said to them, "Fill the jars with water." And they filled them up to the brim. He said to them, "Now draw some out and take it to the person in charge of the banquet." So they took it. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and did not know where it came from, though the servants who had drawn the water knew, that person called the bridegroom, the groom, and said to him, "Everyone serves the good wine first, and then the inferior wine after the guests get drunk. But you have kept the good wine until now. That was a huge compliment. Okay. Jesus did this, the first of his signs in Cana of Galilee, and revealed his glory, and the disciples believed in him. First of all, it does seem like Jesus is sassy, but second of all, to many people, this story seems kind of frivolous, maybe even irrelevant. And, turning water into wine at a wedding, come on, does anybody really need wine? There's more to this story. You need to follow me here because yes, they did actually. But this made copious amounts of wine, like 900 bottles of wine. Okay. But think about that massive generosity, sort of like the feeding of the 5,000 that I talked about last week, just an outpouring, just massive abundance that just flies out of this. There's some important things to take from this story, okay? It's a funny and beautiful story in the Bible, but there are some really important things to learn. First of all, I do want to say this, wine or fermented grape juice, it really was important then because sanitation, okay? They just didn't have the knowledge to know why water made people sick sometimes in terms of medicine or science, and they didn't have the medications to deal with that if that happened. But they had discovered that alcohol seemed to make the water safer. Okay, so yes, grape juice was fermented and turned into wine because the alcoholic content killed pathogens, which they didn't know to call them that or what it was at that time, but they knew that alcohol helped. And often it's important to know that the alcohol that they may have drank at that time was the wine was usually mixed with water or vinegar just to make it go further, or not so alcoholic or whatever. But the alcohol was important to kill pathogens. Okay, so it actually was an important thing. But there are some more important things to take from this. First, Jesus steps in to help someone in need. Okay, think about that for just a minute because you're probably thinking, we're really in need. If you run out of wine, so what? Nobody really needs wine. Well, they kind of did. But no, there's more to this story. See, the wine ran out, which indicates that the couple likely did not have enough money or didn't have enough family support to really host their wedding. And these weddings were multi-day projects. Eloping really wasn't a thing at that time. You had big weddings. This means that this bride and this groom really didn't have enough money or community support to really do things in acceptable ways. This is important. Lindsay Scott writes about this. She says, given the climate, lack of clean water, large number, yeah, Mary, for a lot of reasons, large number of guests and sustained duration of ancient wedding feasts, the lack of wine at this wedding was a serious problem. The inability to provide what the guests needed was a failure in hospitality that would bring shame on the wedding hosts. We may read the story instead of wondering why would Jesus turn water into wine and wonder why the family of the bride and groom failed to provide enough wine, why they couldn't provide the wine, because that says a whole lot about how they fit into the culture. They clearly were not important. It was ancient custom for guests to bring wedding gifts in the form of food and drink to share the burden of providing for such a large group, like we do, potluck style, right? Don't usually do it for weddings, but maybe we should. Thus, the family's lack of wine may indicate a lack of community support, in addition to their own lack of resources. Do you hear that? If they didn't have good community support, that probably means they were much lower class than most people. Not cool, huh? Jesus' actions are that of a friend and a faithful community member who cares for all. The provision of wine is a sign of shared hospitality. I think that part's beautiful. This is important. The beginning of Jesus' ministry marks the start of God's work in the world that has been long awaited. The story leads us to expect surprisingly good and abundant things to come as Jesus begins his ministry. Starting the story with a provision of wine at a wedding feast, we can see Jesus' mission as continuing God's work in the world that provides hospitality and a space of belonging. Do you hear those words? That's important for us. We talk about it all the time here. Outside of the existing honor shame structure, friends, we still live in a whole lot of shame in this culture. And when you welcome somebody, when you care for somebody who nobody else really thinks you should care for, you are breaking the cycle of shame. You are doing something that matters. Jesus models that right here. He steps in to help someone in need. And it's also important by doing this, Jesus makes sure that everyone is included equally in this generous celebration, just what I was talking about. Eliseo Perez Alvarez says some things about this. In those days, food and wine were not served indiscriminately to the guests sitting at the same table. It was based on their social status. See, I would have never guessed this. I wouldn't have known this. Some guests got the cheapest wine. Here's what I was talking about, a mixture of wine, vinegar, and water, like the one Jesus was offered on the cross. That's in Luke 23. While others drank Grand Reserve. That's important, okay? Yes, thank you, Keith. You're right. I agree with you. That's not what that story is about. It's not about the rules of marriage at all. Yeah. But this is a critical piece here because I never thought about that. I mean, can you imagine if you had a wedding and the people with high social class got to go through the buffet line first and got the good wine, and then the people of low class got the leftovers and the vinegar water? That's how it happened at these weddings. That's awful. That's awful. But what Jesus does is he makes so much wine out of all of this. It's obvious the good wine's for everyone. You're not, you don't need to be left out, and no one needs to be left out. There's so much good wine here that everybody gets to partake. Okay, see, you have to see this is way beyond wine. There's so much goodness, there's so much generosity, there's so much love that it's given to everyone equally. We all belong and we all matter, okay? Jesus' wine is for everybody. And then Eliseo continues, Jesus clinks glasses of wine with folks who are exhausted by poverty, telling them salud, cheers, skol, meaning salvation, liberation, humanization, healing. They got invited to and truly included in the party as if they mattered just as much as everybody else. Yeah, 180 gallons of wine. Yes, the amount. If thinking about it as wine bothers you, think about it like as ice cream. Everybody got to do it. Oh, you're kidding, Mary. That's terrible. Bride and groom got a steak and everyone else got a sandwich. That's terrible. There's more to learn from the story. First of all, Jesus does not need or take the credit, and that is specifically spelled out in the scripture. You might have missed it. And here it is, John 2, 9 through 10. When the person in charge tasted the water that had become wine and didn't know where it came from, although the servants did, that person called the bridegroom. Notice that. Didn't go to Jesus and say, wow, Jesus, you made really great wine out of that water. That's amazing. No, he went to the bridegroom and offered the bridegroom a compliment. Now, if the groom was somebody who was lower class or left out, not included, didn't have the community support they needed, this would have been a huge honor to have someone say, you have kept the good wine until now. In other words, your generosity continues and it pours out all the time. I think that's a really beautiful picture. Jesus does not step up here and say, excuse me, but I did that. And neither does Jesus' mom. They just let the bridegroom receive the compliment of offering beautiful hospitality. I think it's amazing. And the fourth thing, Jesus lets the wedding couple look good. The fourth thing I want to talk about are the jars. The jars. That's actually what I've spent the most time thinking on this story. So I want to spend a little time talking about the jars themselves. First of all, they're very clearly defined as Jewish rites of purification holders, okay? They held 20 or 30 gallons of water and they were used for religious practices and purposes. Think about those jars as something like the communion plates that churches might use, or the altar table, or the baptismal font that some churches use. They're specific things that are used for specific religious purposes, okay? Ceremonial washing was a tradition of the elders. It doesn't really go all the way back to God's laws from, I don't know, a long, long time prior in the book of Leviticus and such. This was really a rule that religious leaders had made. Well, sort of. This was the rule had been expanded upon greatly by the religious leaders. Okay, so it wasn't necessarily given by God in the way that it had been demanded or practiced at that time, okay? And that matters because Jesus often pushed against things that were really just traditions of the religious leaders that had lost their meaning, okay? Like he pushed against the Sabbath, like holding the Sabbath. He also pushes against ceremonial washing. Now, let me just throw this out there. First of all, I don't think Jesus is saying that you shouldn't wash your hands. I mean, not washing your hands is gross, friends. Of course, my sister was a science teacher for years, still a science person, and she would say, oh, little germs never hurt anybody, which is probably true, but you should wash your hands. That's not what we're saying here. But Jesus got into a big fuss with the Pharisees over the ceremonial hand washing rules. I mean, it's a flat out argument, knockdown argument. It shows up in Mark chapter 7. Now, when the Pharisees and some of the scribes who had come from, yes, Christine, Jerusalem, gathered around him, they noticed that some of his disciples were eating with defiled hands, that is, without washing them. If you don't wash your hands before you eat, that means they are defiled. I don't know. It was a religious ceremony to make sure that someone was clean enough to approach God, okay? That's why it happened. But you should read this argument because it's pretty good. I mean, they start calling names and such. Jesus gets pretty rough and tough with them. And he actually says something that makes all foods clean. And the Bible even says that. He declares all foods are clean because some foods were unclean and clean. And oh gosh, okay. But here's how this argument ends. Jesus says, it is what comes out of a person that defiles, not what goes in. It's not whether or not you wash your hands or what you eat. It's what comes from your human heart. For it is from within, from the human part, that evil intentions come. So Jesus is saying all of your stuff about ceremonial hand washing is just a religious rite, although, yes, it is a sanitation concern. Whatever. And so he doesn't want them beating people up over something that's just a rule, and maybe even a rule that's lost its meaning. Let's go back to the jars a bit. So Jesus used the ceremonial hand washing jars in a different way, not for ceremonial hand washing, to provide wine at a wedding celebration. Think about that. It's beautiful. Jesus used his very own body for a celebration of life for everyone. Okay? He repurposed his actual body and his blood to become a sacrifice for all of us to understand the lengths to which God will go in love, the perseverance of the love that Jesus lived. I mean, it's pretty obvious. And the pain that the empire will continue to inflict on people who are sacrificing and giving and loving. Okay. Look what Jesus says in Luke 22:20. This cup that is poured out for you is the new covenant in my blood. Do you see this? Jesus is repurposing the wine at that Last Supper as well as his very lifeblood. It's important. He also said, basically in Mark 7, that ceremonial hand washing wasn't as important as they thought it was. But you and I both know that church people, religious people, get really anxious when we repurpose religious things for other reasons. But Jesus doesn't worry about the jars or their religious meaning at all. He just puts water that turns into wine in them. He sees a problem and he finds a practical solution and he repurposes the jars and he solves the problem. We all know, friends, that repurposing things is a really good idea, right? We repurpose things all the time. I mean, look at my office. You should come in here and see. It's actually not that bad today. You want to see? It's not so bad. Some days, crazy. We repurpose things all the time in our lives in general. You know, I don't know that I've ever seen so many boxes come from a place, in and out of a place. We repurpose boxes constantly. We all do that, right? Until they totally fall apart. I hear you can repurpose coffee grounds that have been used, like in your gardens, to make things better. And we all know you can repurpose banana peels for all kinds of things. I mean, Kent Dorholt tells us all the time that if you have two of them on the floor, it makes a pair of slippers. I'm sorry. Just ask Kent about it. That's one of those things where I kind of wish I could hear you, because Kent Dorholt tells a story all the time. Like, what do you get when you have two banana peels on the floor? And then he says a pair of slippers. We've heard that at least 1,000 times, but we love you, Kent. It's cool. Other things can get reused. I grew up in a house where my mom didn't have a lot growing up. And you know, I loved my mom dearly. I'm just going to pick on her for a minute anyway. If she can hear me from wherever she is now, she's probably giving me a lot. Good, Christy. We've all heard it too much. But my mom kept these peanut butter jars, not with the lid, because do you see the markings on them? You could use them as measuring cups, which was pretty cool of Jif Peanut Butter to provide them like that. When we cleaned out her house, however, then we found a lot of other little things that she kept, like twisty ties. I don't know what anybody does with a collection of twisty ties, but she was sure they could be repurposed for something someday. I just found this picture on the internet and thought it was funny. So there you go, a little dude made out of twisty ties. I don't know why she kept the twisty ties. But I want to show you this one too. Now, this is mine and Eric's wedding. And this isn't the best resolution picture, but it was the one I could grab quickly. And you were signing the marriage document here, but look what's on the table. Sure enough, guess what that is? Those are yogurt jars that I saved to put little flowers in on the tables. See them? That's our backyard. See the yogurt jars? Everybody repurposes. I mean, it's a really, really smart thing to do, isn't it? But sometimes people get really, really concerned when religious items or buildings are repurposed. We know that is true. In fact, sometimes people get really, really, really upset about it. Like, really upset. But in this story, Jesus takes the containers that were used for religious practices and repurposes them. He does it. They were used for something new, an outpouring of generosity, hospitality, abundance, celebration, joy, which included and supported all people. Jesus took objects of religion and used them in a new way to bring joy. This is a subject that comes up all the time, okay? All the time. Because people get really worried about things like this. Now, this is day one of the project, where we took the carpet out of the lobby. Again, this is day one because you can still see the carpet lumped up on the floor there. And we're cleaning up and sanding the floor down, and we're going to polish it and make it useful for the purposes of what we are and who we are and what we do now. Now we give food away. We share it with people in our community. But there are people who have gotten really, really, really mad at me when they come in, me or us, me mostly, and see what we have done to the church they remembered a long time ago. And not that long ago, somebody just lost it, just had a meltdown over the fact that we had some food and pallets in the sanctuary. Well, why not? Why not? I think what's hard about this is that when when people have memories, when it has meaning to them because of something that happened there, for it to just be changed feels like it's almost being defiled. And so it's sad. Churches hang on to objects and furniture and flooring and even buildings that really don't help that much anymore, that really have lost their usefulness. Let me go back to this one again. I want you to think about that for a minute. How do you feel about religious objects in your world? Are you okay if a church sanctuary gets used to give away food someday? Oh, wait, I know we just did the lobby, but our sanctuary here, it seats 420 people, has an inconvenient slanty floor, at least for now. But what if? Are there other things that really we could use for different purposes that really would be more life-giving than just sitting empty all week? It just breaks my heart. Last week, I told you the story about a lady who came in to our Friday food giveaway, actually, a group of ladies, and they wanted to learn about what we were doing because they considered doing this at their own church, right? Well, she said a lot of things that really made me mad, but one of them was, but this is messy. And she looked around at the floor and said, this is messy. Do you know how many churches there are that are like hers, that can't do things because they would mess up their buildings that no one ever uses for anything except standing around on Sundays? Yep, An Altar in the World. It's a very good book. I've read that one, Vonda. Yeah. Are there other things though that we could repurpose? Not just this church, but maybe you and in the way you think about religion. You know, the containers that we put Jesus in often do not hold Jesus very well. Are there things that really are a part of our religious practices that have lost their meaning? Or maybe have meaning only for the people who were there, the historical meaning for those who experienced it? Are there things that really need to be repurposed? But I want you to think about this in your personal life too. Are there things you do just because you've always done them that are really no longer offering you anything that's life-giving? Are there family traditions or personal habits even that really could be repurposed for the greater good? Are there things that you could give away to somebody that they need that you don't anymore? Jesus takes things and repurposes them for the purposes of generosity and joy and community and full inclusion of all people. And you know what? I am super proud of this church. I know it's hard, and some people are going to be like, oh, yikes, what did we do? But honestly, it looks great. It won't be done till Tuesday, though. Don't worry, the Tuesday food giveaway will happen. And by the way, don't come in the building tomorrow because tomorrow is Seal the Floor Day. Don't walk on it. Nobody wants your initials on the floor. Sorry. I know it might be fun. Don't do it. But tomorrow is when they put the seal it down. Don't come here tomorrow on Monday. Um, but some people might be kind of anxious about it, but I am so proud of a church this church, that's willing to do all of these things. Now, we do make people mad sometimes. They get really worried about it. They get anxious about it. But if you've been here on a Tuesday or a Friday, or even if you've heard the stories about it, you know that this has become a space that is used to give life and to share generously. I just hope that the spaces of my heart and my life also can be repurposed for life-giving love. And I know I've got some cleaning up to do myself. Yeah, life in the holy. Friends, I encourage you, think about what you could repurpose. And think about the things that worry you about repurposing. Because right now, my opinion is that we need to be as efficient as possible. Yep, Dennis, I agree. Efficient as possible. We need to use everything as much as we can to demonstrate what we believe about love, what we believe about Jesus, and what we believe it means to love our neighbor. Because there are very conflicting messages out there right now. And if I don't know if you're believing the way that I am, I think Jesus was all about loving everybody. And even though turning water into wine at a wedding might seem like a frivolous story, it's not at all. It's beautiful and it's funny. It's just joy. So I encourage you, friends, get involved in the things that will bring generosity and hope and joy. Repurpose your time if you need to. Get involved in something good. I promise we can make a huge difference together in this world and always. And once again, don't come here tomorrow, Monday, because you shouldn't walk on the floor at all tomorrow. We will be moving things as much as possible back in place at 3 o'clock on Tuesday. If you let us know that you're coming, then we can contact you if the plans change. And they've already changed several times in the last 4 or 5 days. So reach out. We'd love to have your help. We're also going to put all the big heavy things back Wednesday at 5 o'clock, but let us know you're coming. So again, we can contact you if the plans change. But take care, everybody. I encourage you to get involved in anything that brings life. And I'm not saying you have to work. Sometimes maybe you need to replace some of your work with a little bit more rest, a little bit more joy. Take care, everybody. Much love. I will see you soon.